I'm Margaret. I'm 79 years old, and I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I also have no one to spend it with. No husband, no children, no close friends. I achieved exactly what I set out to achieve. I'm financially secure, completely independent, and utterly alone. And I did this to myself, one penny at a time. I'm Margaret. I'm 79 years old, and I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I also have no one to spend it with. No husband, no children, no close friends. I achieved exactly what I set out to achieve. I'm financially secure, completely independent, and utterly alone. And I did this to myself, one penny at a time. I grew up during a time when money was everything because we never had any. My father worked in a factory. My mother took in sewing. We had food on the table, but nothing extra, nothing frivolous, nothing wasted. I remember being 8 years old and my mother explaining why we couldn't go on the school field trip to the zoo. It cost $3. $3 we didn't have. I watched the other kids get on that bus, and I swore to myself I would never be in a position where $3 mattered again. So I became careful with money. Very careful. I got a job at 15 working at a grocery store, and I saved every paycheck. While other girls bought records or went to movies, I put my money in a savings account and watched it grow. It wasn't much, maybe a few $100s by the time I graduated high school, but seeing that number increase felt like safety, like control, like I was building something that couldn't be taken away from me. I got a scholarship to college and worked part-time the whole way through. I had a roommate, Janet, who was always inviting me to things: coffee with friends, trips to the beach, concerts downtown. I always said no. I told her I had to work or study, but the truth was I couldn't justify spending money on things that wouldn't last. A cup of coffee was gone in an hour. A concert ticket was one night, but the money in my account was permanent. It was there every time I checked. It made me feel secure in a way nothing else did. Janet stopped asking after a while. We stopped being close. She graduated and moved away, and I never heard from her again. I told myself it didn't matter. I had my degree, my savings, my plan. I didn't need friendship. I needed stability. I got a job as an accountant, which fit me perfectly. I was good with numbers, good at finding ways to save, to cut cost, to maximize efficiency. I moved into a small studio apartment, even though I could have afforded something bigger. I shopped at discount stores, bought generic brands, brought my lunch from home every single day. My coworkers would go out for lunch together, laughing and talking, and they'd invite me along. I'd smile and show them my sandwich and say I was all set. After a few years, they stopped inviting me. I'd see them leave together, see them come back talking about some restaurant they'd tried, or some funny thing that happened. I'd feel a small pang of something, but I'd look at my bank statement that night and feel that pang dissolve. I was saving almost 60% of my income. I was building wealth. I was doing everything right. I dated a man named Paul when I was 31. He was kind, stable, worked as an engineer. We went out for a few months, and he wanted to take a weekend trip together, just a small cabin upstate, nothing expensive. But I calculated the cost: gas, food, the cabin rental. I told him I didn't see the point in spending money to sleep somewhere that wasn't my own bed. He looked at me like I'd said something strange. He said it wasn't about the cabin. It was about spending time together, making a memory. I told him we could make memories without wasting money. We broke up 2 weeks later. I convinced myself he didn't understand. He was careless with money, the type who'd end up in debt or struggling in retirement. I was smarter than that. I was disciplined. I didn't need romantic getaways. I needed financial security. My parents died when I was in my 40s, within 2 years of each other. My mother went first, then my father just seemed to fade away without her. I inherited their house, which wasn't worth much, but I sold it immediately and put the money into investments. My sister Claire called me after the funeral and suggested we take a trip together, maybe go somewhere my mother had always wanted to visit but never could. She mentioned Italy. My mother used to talk about seeing the Italian countryside, the old churches, the vineyards. I told Claire that was a foolish idea, that my mother never went because it was too expensive and impractical, and spending money on it now wouldn't change anything. Claire got quiet. She said she'd pay for both of us, that it wasn't about the money, it was about honoring Mom. I told her I didn't have time to take off work. She didn't push. We barely spoke after that. Now she lives in Arizona, with her 3 children and 7 grandchildren, and we exchange Christmas cards with no personal notes, just signatures. I kept working, kept saving. I maxed out my 401k every year, put everything extra into index funds, monitored my investments weekly. I retired at 65, with just over $1 million saved. Everyone at work threw me a small party. They asked what I was going to do with all my free time, where I was going to travel. I told them I was going to stay right here, live modestly, and make my money last. They looked at me with something like pity, but I didn't understand why. I'd won. I'd done what everyone says you're supposed to do. I'd saved for retirement, except retirement is long and quiet when you're alone. The first year wasn't so bad. I organized my house, set up a strict budget for my monthly expenses, monitored my portfolio obsessively. But then the second year came, and the third, and I started to realize that my days had no shape. I'd wake up, check my accounts, make my breakfast, read the news, check my accounts again. I'd go to the grocery store and buy the same things I always bought, the cheapest options, the best value per ounce. I'd come home and put everything away in my quiet apartment and sit with the silence. I tried joining a book club at the library about 5 years ago. I thought it would be free, so why not? But the first meeting, they suggested we meet at a cafe next time, instead of the library, said it would be nicer to have coffee and pastries while we discussed. I said I'd rather keep meeting at the library. They said okay, but the next month they met at the cafe anyway. I didn't go. I told myself they were irresponsible with money, that I didn't need their friendship, but the truth is I did need it. I do need it. I'm 79 years old, and I spend entire weeks without speaking to another human being, except the cashier at the grocery store. And even then, I keep it brief. I use the self-checkout when I can, because it's faster, and I don't have to make small talk. Last year my building had a community dinner for all the residents, potluck style. I didn't go because I didn't want to spend money on ingredients to make something to share, and I didn't want to feel obligated to donate to whatever fund they'd inevitably ask for. I heard them in the hallway that night, laughing and talking, and I sat in my apartment alone, eating the same dinner I eat every night. Chicken breast, frozen vegetables, rice, 73 cents per serving. I'd calculated it. I have this neighbor, Dorothy, who lives 2 doors down. She's about my age, maybe a little older. She's always going somewhere. Her daughter picks her up, or her son, or her friends. I see her in the lobby sometimes getting into cars, heading to lunch or a movie, or her grandkids' soccer game. She's always smiling, always has somewhere to be. Once, about 3 years ago, she invited me to join her and some friends for lunch. I asked where they were going. She named a place I knew was overpriced. I told her no thank you. She hasn't asked since. Now when we see each other in the lobby, she just nods politely and keeps moving. I think about her a lot. I think about how she probably doesn't have as much money as I do. She probably didn't save as aggressively, probably spent money on things I would have considered wasteful. But she has people. She has places to go. She has a life that exists outside her bank account. I've started doing something I'm almost ashamed to admit. I go to the mall sometimes and just sit on the benches and watch people. Families, couples, groups of friends shopping together, laughing, carrying bags full of things they probably don't need. I used to judge people like that. I used to think they were foolish, impulsive, financially irresponsible. Now I watch them and feel something that feels like grief. They're buying experiences, buying connection, buying memories. And I spent my whole life telling myself those things weren't valuable because they didn't show up on a balance sheet. 3 months ago, I got a call from a charity I used to donate small amounts to. They were having a gala fundraiser and wondered if I'd like to attend. It was $200 a plate. The old me would have said no immediately. $200 for one meal. But something made me hesitate. The woman on the phone said it would be a nice evening. Good food, good company, all for a good cause. I actually considered it. I thought maybe I'd meet people, make a connection. But then I calculated what $200 could become if invested over 10 years, and I told her no. I hung up and sat in my quiet apartment and understood that I will probably die here, alone, with $2 million that I'll leave to charities run by people I never met. I have no children to leave it to. I never had children because children are expensive, and I couldn't imagine the financial burden. Diapers, clothes, college tuition. I ran the numbers when I was younger and decided it wasn't worth it. Now I see women my age showing pictures of their grandchildren, and I feel a hollowness I can't quite name. Those women probably didn't save as much as I did. They probably spent money on dance classes and birthday parties and family vacations. But they have people who love them. They have someone to call them, to visit them, to care whether they wake up in the morning. I fell last winter, just slipped on some ice outside my building, and went down hard. I lay there for a minute, stunned, and I realized that if I'd broken something, if I couldn't get up, it might be hours before anyone noticed. Maybe days. I could afford the best health care in the world, could hire round-the-clock care if I needed it. But there's no one who'd come just because they were worried. No one who'd check on me because they care, not because they're paid to. I got up that day with just some bruises, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. All this money, all this security, and I could die on a sidewalk, and no one would miss me, until the building manager wondered why my rent check was late. I've been thinking a lot about my mother lately, about how she used to save little bits of money in an envelope for what she called someday. She never got to someday. She died at 68 with less than $1,000 in that envelope. But I remember her laughing with her friends over coffee at our kitchen table. I remember her taking an afternoon off work to come to my school play, even though we couldn't afford for her to miss those hours. I remember her telling me that money was important, but people were more important. I thought she was wrong. I thought she was just making excuses for why we were poor. Now I understand. She knew something I spent my whole life refusing to learn. You can't buy connection. You can't invest in intimacy. You can't save up for love and withdraw it when you finally need it. Those things have to be built over time, with presence, with generosity, with showing up even when it costs you something. And I never did that. I showed up for my bank account. I was present for my portfolio. I was generous with my future self, and stingy with everyone else. I look at my life now, and it's comfortable. My apartment is paid for. I have excellent health care. I eat well within my budget. I have enough money to live comfortably. For another 20 years, even if I live to 100, I've won at the game I was playing. But I was playing the wrong game. I optimized for financial security, and lost everything else. If I could go back, I'd take that field trip to the zoo, I'd go to coffee with Janet. I'd take that weekend trip with Paul. I'd go to Italy with Claire. I'd have the baby even though babies are expensive. I'd go to the cafe with the book club. I'd attend the gala. I'd say yes to Dorothy's lunch invitation. I'd spend the money because money, it turns out, is only valuable if it buys you a life worth living, and a life worth living isn't lived alone. But I can't go back. I'm 79 years old. The choices are made. The relationships I didn't invest in are gone. The experiences I didn't buy are lost. All I have is what I saved for: security, stability, and the crushing weight of knowing I spent my whole life saving for a retirement. I'm now living in complete isolation. So to anyone watching this who's saying no to life because you're saying yes to your savings account, I'm begging you to reconsider. Your 401k will never visit you. Your investment portfolio won't laugh at your jokes. Your bank balance won't hold your hand when you're scared. Money is a tool, not a destination, and I built a fortune but lost a life. Don't make my mistake. Don't wake up one day with everything you saved for and nothing that matters.